So today I finally finished the handful of Lina Wertmüller films that we had on Filmstruck that I hadn't seen yet, as well as a documentary not directed by her, but about her and featuring her. The two films that I had left were All Screwed Up from 1974 and Fernando and Carolina from 1999. Very different films, very different tones. All Screwed Up, like much of Wertmüller's 70s filmography, is about the changes in the Italian economy in the 70s and the class struggles. And in particular, she made several films about southern, more agricultural Italians immigrating up to the north and working in industry. Now, the thing about Italy that you have to know is there are 20 regions. They have a name for them, but I can't remember now. We're going to call them regions. And 5 of those regions have special privileges within the government, and the other, 15 don't. But each one is its own, similar to the United States, each one is its own sort of, unit. And some of them have their own languages as well, not just dialects of Italian, but languages. So this caused this mixing of Italians for the first time, really, because of the economy, caused a lot of strife and what have you post, World War II and specifically into the 70s. At the same time, America was having a big upheaval as well, as those of you who are alive remember. So All Screwed Up, it follows several immigrants who moved to the north and all live together in a house. Some that are in the house are already from there. Some have been there for a while. Some are new, and they're all dealing with their new situations, with living in this new house, with this new living situation, with babies and marriage and jobs and all kinds of things. And it's just very much an ensemble piece that is looking at the trouble of Italian society at the time via the minutia of everyday struggles. Parts of it are really funny, parts of it are sad. It has that very Wertmüllerian sort of jazzy score that she had in all of those early 70s films. You can very much feel, much like in Seduction of Mimi, you can very much feel how much of an impact these early Wertmüller films had on filmmakers like Spike Lee and like Tarantino. You can totally feel it, and it's also very dialogue heavy, a la Tarantino. So I enjoyed it. It's probably not my favorite of her films. That's going to go to Seduction of Mimi, but this was a very good, interesting part of her filmography. The next one I watched, Fernando and Carolina, it's from 1999. It's 25 years later. It feels like those films, but it's set in the 1820s, and you've completely lost all of you have this rich modern dialogue in this very staid, fancy period piece trappings, and it causes a little cognitive dissonance at first, just because we're so used to, stuffy period pieces where everyone talks properly, when in reality that's not how it ever was. We all know that. There's always debaucheries, and this movie just fully revels in the debaucheries of these royals. So Fernando was the king of Naples, as I was saying earlier about the various regions. They all had different kings at one point. He was the king of Naples, who married Carolina, who was a princess from the Empress of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Austria as it was at that point. And the first 40 minutes or so are kind of slow until they get married, and then it's all about them sort of challenging each other, and really her challenging him, and him attempting to still sort of fuck around on her, and his inability to learn from someone who's smarter and stronger and better than him, basically. And then getting trapped in his own, cocksureness, if you will. So it's again another lesser sort of, I hate the term lesser, but it's not one of her best films, but it's definitely an interesting film and has a lot to say about a power dynamics of the sexes, which is a huge theme in the bulk of her filmography. and I'm glad that I watched it. And then the last one that I watched was called Behind the White Glasses, and it's directed by Valerio Ruiz. It's from 2015, and it is sort of a look at the roots of Wertmüller's career, how she got started, her early films, her breakouts, and as she slowly sort of made less and less films, but the impact that she's made on not just Italian cinema, but cinema throughout the entire world. So I would definitely recommend seeing a handful of her films first and then watching it, and not just going in and then watching her films. It's really serves as a capper to her filmography. I have not seen all of her movies yet, but I'm looking forward to catching all of the ones that weren't on Filmstruck. I need to find them. But it's not just Italian people who talk in this film. Like, there are Who You Expect, Giancarlo Giannini, and what is her name? Archive footage of Margiano Milato, but also Sophia Loren, Natasha Kinski, Harvey Keitel, Rutger Hauer, and the one and only Martin Scorsese all talk about her and her impact, working with her, etc., etc. So I highly recommend watching that after you've seen a handful of her films. This is Lina Wertmüller. Watch her films. She is a lover or hater. She's a stunning, stunning craftsperson and one of the great directors of all time.